Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Looking for Love in All the Wrong Dust Jackets, a show where three disgruntled harpies talk to you about everything we love in romance, whether that's books, movies, TV shows, whatever we like. My name's Liz.
I'm Danny.
I'm Wiggles.
And welcome to Season 3.
I love it, Wiggs. Thanks. We
The
appreciate
crowd goes
you.
Wild.
Today, we are discussing For Whom the Bell Tolls by Jaysea Lynn, based off of the very super popular TikTok series, The Hell's Bells. But before we get into that, I have to warn you, I got to let the people know that we are crass and unhinged. We're terribly unladylike. And we're going to talk about all of them naughty times using all them 4-letter words.
There were some good ones.
I don't know if they got that from the fact that it's called Hell's Bells. 4 little words. Okay, don't look at me. I'm going home.
You are
already home.
You're leaving my home.
Wiggles. What's up with Jaysea Lynn? Who is this person?
Oh, this person is a dynamic storyteller whose contemporary fantasy romance brand stands out for its unique blend of humor, heart, and spice. I don't know if you know that. As the mastermind behind this captivating universe, she combines the best of digital storytelling with literary publishing, creating narratives that resonate deeply with her audience. Also, under the TikTok tag, see ya later, as in SEA.YA.LATER. So check her out. That's where you can find that Hell's Bells series. So, Danny... Shit, she's already smiling. Danny, dare I say, what is this story about?
Okay, so this story is about Lily. This is not a spoiler because you literally find it out on the first page. She dies of cancer. She goes to the afterlife and gets her paradise and everything, and she kind of wanders down to hell one day, more out of spite than anything else from religious trauma, and she sets up a help desk in hell to try to help the gate demons. She then meets Belle, or Beleth is his full name, and he is a demon prince of hell, general of 85 legions, and they fall in love, and it's really fucking cute. So then she also adopts a horribly abused little girl who was so abused that she was convinced that she needed to go to hell because that's what her foster mother said. Ew. And it's kind of their story of how they're falling in love. It's her story of the afterlife. There is a lot of trigger warnings, I will say, for religious trauma, for the abuse. A lot of heavy stuff happens in this book, but it is very good. And I think let's just talk about it.
Why don't you kick us off, Danny? Because I know you're itching to talk about it anyway.
So where would you like to start?
Yeah, it's more of like, where would you like us to randomly chime in?
I want to have a discussion. I've been waiting to have a discussion with you people for a month and a half because this was my suggestion. And I was very excited because I have been obsessed with the Hell's Bells series since it started.
Mm-hmm.
I have watched it all the way through, which has now been multiple years. I love it. I think we should start with Lily.
Yeah.
You know, she dies.
Yep. She
Wow.
dies. She gets
Eloquently
cancer.
Okay.
Been a minute, okay.
So she doesn't just die. When we are introduced to her, she is in the process of processing her finding out that she has cancer and having to go and have this conversation with her parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of get a montage of bits leading up to her actually passing away and entering into this version of the afterlife that kind of is a combination of all afterlives.
Yes. So the way it's kind of described in the Hell's Bells series, and they don't go into it a ton in the book, but it's kind of it's known how it's set up, is basically the universe is what controls everything, and then the individual belief systems are set up in their own like pocket dimensions of the afterlife.
Essentially, if you really bought into your religion, that religion's version of heaven and hell or mysticism or I don't even know, Valhalla are there.
Correct.
Right. But a big part of the story is breaking down our kind of preconceived notions, at least of the Christian heaven and hell. I would say they really don't touch on anything else other than just saying that they're there.
Yeah. So, because she sets up the help desk in hell, and that is in the Christian's punishment place. And she went there out of spite because she had a lot of religious trauma, and she was like, fuck it, let's find out what hell actually is about.
And I will say it is generic Christian. Like I would say it is more in line with like Lutheran or Methodist
Yeah.
flavor. Those of us raised Catholic, you know, it's different. It's a different vibe.
Yeah. She was made to feel bad about herself because she was sexually assaulted when she was in her church group and everything. She was, you know, made to feel pretty garbage about herself, and she had a lot of purity culture
Yes.
trauma.
Yeah, there's a lot of unpacking of purity culture throughout this entire book.
And also just unpacking of patriarchy and ableism and things of that nature too. I think the religious trauma is definitely the star, if you will, of the problems, but it does touch on quite a few things that are normalized in human culture. You know, the other thing that I found interesting in terms of the take that Lily had in this story is when you look at Jaysea Lynn, she's a bit of a waif. She's a thin.
She is a very thin woman.
And Lily, like in my head, because she had played the character in Hell's Bells, is that they're one-to-one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially Lily as the main character.
Yes. And Lily is very much described as much more of a voluptuous gal.
She says at one point that she used to keep a figurine of the sculpture of Aphrodite because that was similar to her body type.
Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting, and I kind of had to like shake that off. I'd be like, I need to not look at your face because I'm picturing your face and that's not the face.
I sometimes have problems with that too. Specifically in the Hell's Bells series with Ruggie, she makes several comments that she could never lose weight because she thought it was God punishing her. And so Ruggie is also a bigger, more voluptuous woman. And because Jaysea plays all of them spectacularly, by the way, you forget sometimes that they don't all look like her.
Right. Yeah, so I well, and specifically with it being like this first main character too, where I was like, what?
I always most associate her with Lily.
Yeah,
or Sharky. I do see her face, her crazy face, as like Sharky the teenager.
I love Sharky so much.
Yeah, that's like another set of trauma to unpack. Is because Sharky as a soul is like around like 5 to 7-ish.
Yes. She said it's kind of hard to determine her exact age because she is very small for her age.
Yeah.
Definitely it seems like a malnourished factor is like reduced her growth. And when she gets there, also just in a little shark onesie, looking scared and confused. Like, how do you, like, you're gonna assume younger.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sharky's arrival rips my heart apart.
Yeah, that was real great to listen to on the way to work.
Yeah.
So the rest of the
traumatic.
day I was just like, don't fucking talk to me about anything right now because I'm one hair away from being very upset, so I need you to go away.
Yeah. The thing is though, like, and I wish that she would have touched on this a little bit in the book. So Sharky shows up and is a child, and typically children either get reincarnated or go to like paradise to, they don't call it grow up. What do they call it? They have a different term for growing up as a soul.
I don't remember exactly what they call it for sure, but they mature.
Yeah.
So as their mental age matures, then that's when their body in the afterlife matures.
Right. So the one thing I kind of wish they would have touched on more is, because I can't imagine Sharky is the only kid who's been in that position of feeling like they had failed at life or had like some sort of punishment. So I kind of wish we would have seen a little bit more of that, especially with like the other deities, just because I expected them to kind of know what to do with the situation a bit more.
Yeah. It rips my heart apart, but They do mention at the very first, because Sita, she works at the front desk, she kind of mentions that, you know, kids automatically can go to reincarnation. They sometimes get their own paradise, or they get fostered by other people in other people's paradises, which is how Sharky ends up with Lily. And so I imagine other people kind of are going through the same thing. I just think Sharky's mind is a little unusual, and she was bound and determined that she was going to get down to hell because she didn't want to get in trouble. And I think most kids, after being explained to that, no, baby, that's not where you need to go, would have kind of been understanding, but she's a very determined little girl.
I guess I just think, you know, at that age, when you're that young, I could see a lot of kids kind of having that mental state. But yeah, the Sharky storyline was very well done. I liked how she kind of fit into the rest of the plot.
Mm-hmm. Her little moments that are just so, like, I wish I almost had like a painting of them just like sitting in the door with it raining outside. They had a fun day where Lily and Sharky just ran out in the rain and had a fun moment. Mm-hmm. And then they went and laid out, like they left the door open and just laid on pillows in front of the rain. So cute. And Lily's paradise is in Hobbiton, so they're in a hobbit hole.
I will say maybe just because we're here, it might be a good point to also put a little bit of a trigger warning for not child loss, but like infertility.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Wherever you kind of land on that spectrum, whether, you know, you don't want to read about somebody having to deal with infertility, or, you know, you're not as connected to a story about like wanting to bear children. That is a big part of Lily's kind of conflict and hangups in staying in the afterlife instead of reincarnating.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I will say I was surprised at how much that's centered in the story.
Yeah.
Like I understand the like struggle of making the choice of I will either never have kids or I have to leave and not be able to remember this person I've fallen in love with. But I was surprised that it wasn't never something that really got to a point of acceptance, because as soon as it did, it was immediately like, just kidding, you're a deity now. And you don't have to worry about that shit.
Especially when Sharky was right there. And like, I understand that it's not the same. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, having a 5-7-year-old dropped in your lap versus like planning your own family, they're different. But considering how quickly Sharky and Lily bonded, I agree with you. I was kind of surprised that this storyline continued for as long as it did about Lily as a dead soul not being able to have her own children.
Well, and I think the only thing that I do like that even after, you know, she has rescinded her ability to reincarnate, she is now technically a denizen of the afterlife, and she can have children. They don't right away.
Yeah, I did appreciate that they were like, that doesn't mean we're ready.
Yeah, that doesn't mean we're ready. We're just, the ability to be able to someday is important. They're extensively immortal at this point.
Yeah.
So there is no rush per se.
I think that like very little plot wise what I've changed, but I think the one thing I would have changed there is it would have been, I think, more impactful if it was that they were like, oh, we've adopted Sharky,
Mm-hmm.
we've built this family, there are going to be more Sharkies.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be more kids that come down here that are just utterly confused and not sure how to get to a place of peace.
I think where her wanting to be pregnant and everything, it comes from a lot. This is me looking back at the Hell's Bell series.
Mm-hmm.
Very early on, a health insurance CEO comes down and he's sassing off to Lily and everything. And she's like, well, I didn't appreciate that your health insurance refused to cover my chemo.
Mm-hmm.
And he said something about, oh, even if you lived the rest of your life, what were you really going to do with it? Would you want to stay in a 5-star hotel like the big dogs? And she goes, I wanted to be a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, that moment it's very quiet. It's very, it's creepy.
Yeah, but like, I think I agree with Wiggles. I didn't necessarily like the deity kind of like wrap up there. I feel like it kind of undermined all the work that Lily and Belle did to accept their life and to accept Sharky as their child. And you know, sometimes it's nice if not everything gets wrapped up all pretty. You're like, this is real life. People have complications and they have to like make sacrifices.
I do think, though, now that this is the established core lore, right, as we go forward, like right now, Sharky obviously is claiming that she's not going back, right? But eventually that's, for her, I hope that's not true.
It is not.
Yeah.
Hey, no spoilers to the actual Hell's Bells
I'm
series.
sorry.
I mean, I already
How
knew
dare
that,
you.
but also don't spoil the actual Hell's Bells series for people.
I'm not upset. But if you are at home, hello, you came to this podcast where we spoil everything.
Yeah. Sorry, she has reincarnated.
Yeah. So I think that that's something that they can play with that keeps that sacrifice a factor, because obviously when Sharky eventually dies and comes back again, it's not going to be the same.
Correct.
And good. And that's a good thing. Like,
Well,
you
yeah.
know,
While we're on the topic of reincarnation, because this question's been like lingering in my brain, what would you guys do?
Oh, not at all.
Right. Not, I mean, like, let's pretend, you don't have Belle or, whatever. You're just living in paradise.
Yeah,
Why
no,
would
I'm
you
good.
reincarnate?
I would never.
I think only if I had some control over the next life that I would inhabit. Obviously, I have control of the choices I make, but like the person I'm born into,
Right.
totally different. And so if I was like gonna go back and like, guess what? It's worse than last time, I'd be pissed. Right? Like, I'd be like, you motherfuckers sent me into a war zone. What?
Yeah, I could not imagine, especially if I got to have a little hobbit hole and just like, well, and you can still live life. Yeah, it's the big question in any sort of like vampire book or any sort of immortal book where you're staring down forever. Things they don't feel as important or valuable, but like, I mean, I can just like read books and play video games and do my hobbies.
I think people get bored eventually, which is why they would eventually, but I don't foresee myself ever doing it. I would be like, deuces, I'm happy in my TARDIS and I'm gonna chill here.
Cthulhu exists. How bored can you get?
Well, the only thing I can think is, for human beings, we contextualize everything around our own lived experience. And so I could see somebody getting so bored with everything working out for them, essentially. Like, nothing's that bad ever. Like, so I think that, and I think also if this was the oldest I got in my lifetime, I could see myself wanting to go back and experience what being older and wiser is,
I guess because like the one thing though is the souls get to like represent themselves physically however they wish, so you could look old if you wanted to,
but I don't think that's the same thing as lived experience.
It's not.
No, it's not.
Like, so it wouldn't be the same. And so I could see myself going, yeah, let's do it one more time.
Well, I could see, especially if like you didn't really have that many bad like lifetimes.
Yeah.
But Lily talks about the fact that she's never really gotten any in all of her lifetimes, never really gotten any older than 30. She's never had kids in any of them.
Yeah, this is the oldest she's gotten, and I think she passed at 34.
Yeah. And so like that point I'm like, yo, I'm done trying. It's not happening again.
Well, one of the things I liked that's early on in the book when she's being introduced to this realm that she's in is that there's the like sorting of options, essentially. Like, you can either reincarnate right away, Godspeed, go forward. You can be weighed and measured by whatever standard you want. Like if you're trying to get into Valhalla, you're gonna have a different standard than if you're trying to measure up based on your Christian God kind of thing. Or you can, choose hell if that's what you want. Like,
well, so basically the way it is you go through universal judgment, and then they list you off, like, if say you've been deemed that you need to go to a punishment realm for a certain amount of time, because that's the other thing is hell is not what people think it is.
right.
It's levels 3 through up are all essentially therapy levels.
And then there's the fourth option, which is to go into the void.
Yes.
And one of the things I liked about that is I'm going to say two things that I liked about it. One was the description of that it's not always these souls who've lived 1,000 lives that choose to go to the void. Sometimes it's just a few souls that have had lifetimes that are just enough to tire them out, and they don't want more of anything, right?
And sometimes it's afterlife denizens, so people who were born and raised in the afterlife and just don't want to anymore.
Yes. And I also liked that, different from, I would say, most lore that I've come up against, is you can come back. You aren't like, it's not like you're infinitely gone forever. You could come back in theory if you wanted to. Only human souls, though.
Afterlife's denizens are gone if they do that, but
definitely early on, this book was striking some chords of that was, you know, inspiring the thought machine to go, what if? And I think that's the core of the Hell's Bell series and what works, and was the core of what was making this book work. And so the only thing is, when we started to veer a little bit, it almost felt like we were in fact off course. Like we weren't still carrying through the same narrative that we've been going through the whole time.
Yeah, I think what definitely really worked is seeing all the different variations of afterlife and seeing different souls and denizens kind of experiencing that. I wish we could have seen a little bit more of that towards the later half of the book. I really wish we would have spent more time in hell. I feel like we did not spend enough time in hell.
And the only thing that I think justifies that is, I think the assumption is that most people who are coming to the series are coming from Hell's Bells. And so there's a presumption of knowledge.
Yeah.
Which, you know, pros and cons on that, right? Yeah. Like, it's the same as when we've read books where we're like, I know I'm missing a piece. And it's like, this is a sequel, bitch. You've been reading a sequel the whole time. Technically, this is a prequel, but you know, it's the same concept.
Yeah. Well, and it being a prequel meant that we spent a lot of time in the world building phase.
Yeah.
It was very clear that there's a lot of questions that were trying to get like closed up and answered.
Well, and the problem is, when you're talking about the afterlife, it's all questions.
Yes.
It's all questions. And so how many can you answer in a nearly 700-page book? And now we know.
I do love, so one of the things in the book is she made a deal with her brother that she was going to make his socks go missing.
I did like this.
Yes.
In the Hell's Bells series, there's continually moments where Dante, who's a young demon, who's like an intern at the help desk, comes and hands her a sock, and she never fucking explains it in the Hell's Bells series.
Oh.
Never fucking explains it. And then it's explained in the book.
Oh, I'm sure that was a very like beautiful moment for you to actually like get that answer.
Oh my God. And then now in the series, her brother has now passed, and he's like, how many of my socks do you have?
My question about the Jaysea Lynn is like, do you just have voices in your head all the time? If you've been like concocting this massive world for this long, do you just constantly have people going, so then I said blah, 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 blah. And she's like, just stop. I'm trying to live my life.
Right? Damn, do you have Sharky in there doing weird noises?
Right? Like, just like, because that's, it feels not effortless, because that's dismissive, but it feels like it's just generative. Like there isn't a choice in the matter. It just comes out.
I feel that way about Allie Hazelwood, because that woman's just pumping out books left, right, and center.
Right.
And I'm just like, what
like
is your brain?
Once she hit her stride, she was like, I can do 20 more. Let's go. Like, what? Oh my God. Emily Henry's another one of those where she's just like, every year she's like, I've got another one. And you're like, thank you. I will take it. Yeah.
Must be nice. Must be nice.
Should we maybe talk about our main man?
Sure.
Belle.
It's never really described officially that way, but I perceive him as always being double cheeked up on a Thursday afternoon.
Yeah.
That's my impression of him.
Yep. He does have a nice ass. She said it many times.
Yes. She just didn't say it in that way.
Yes.
But that is my understanding.
Oh, God.
He's a demon prince of hell that she met while playing pretty much Among Us.
I also like visualize him as the devil in, what is it, Legendary?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Never mind. Don't worry about it. But he's voiced by Tim Curry in my head. Did I listen to the audiobook and he is not voiced by Tim Curry? Yes, but in my head, he's voiced by Tim Curry.
That Invaders, which is this world's version of Among Us, God, that opening scene, like the amount of secondhand embarrassment and cringe I felt was like through the roof. I'm like, girl, don't hit on people you don't know yet. It's not okay.
I loved their Invaders moments. I thought they were really freaking cute.
Other than the first one, yes.
Yes.
The first one, I wanted to like slap her, be like, no, you don't get
Just
just
a spray bottle. We don't do that.
you don't just get to hit on somebody virtually that you've never met before in front of a bunch of other people that you only barely know.
To be fair, that happens a lot on the internet. So
It's true. Also, she did randomly make a sex joke in the moment she met a goddess.
Also, not great. Like, just because it worked out doesn't mean it was a good thing.
A lot of Lily's afterlife is just she got lucky and was with the right person to receive that approach.
Right.
Yeah. Though everybody seems thirsty in the afterlife.
I mean, yeah.
Or a buddy, other than Leviathan.
Everybody
Oh,
in
poor
the club getting frisky.
Yeah.
Or Sharky, because Sharky
Well,
does
I mean,
end up
children.
being... Well, yes, but when she becomes an adult, she is actually asexual,
Sure.
That makes sense.
which means that she so often is like, these are the people who raised me. Goddamn.
Yeah, they do be traumatizing that poor girl left, right, and center.
Hey, at least they had the conversation with her when she did walk in on them.
I just don't know how you get to the age of 30 and don't know how to lock a door.
Well, also, the house, so they live in a semi-sentient house. What was that house doing? Letting that door be open.
I was going to say, Carlton.
That's
you're
your
falling down
responsibility.
on the
Step
job.
up to the plate, you know?
Goddamn, Carlton.
It's not that much to ask when you're out here cleaning yourself like crazy to once in a while be like, and I'm going to lock that.
I'm just going to lock that door.
Yeah, I'm going to save that child from trauma. No.
I do love that the house made it so that nobody could enter her room without her permission.
Mm-hmm.
Because poor sweet Sharky needed to feel secure in a space where she slept.
Well, I imagine she's never had her own space as a child in the system, let alone all the other shit that happened to her.
The fact that then Lily's response is, okay, let's take you down. And she sends a text to Lucifer and like, please be cool with this, dude. And he was fine with it.
I feel like a little bit like Lucifer has been done dirty. You're going to tell me that basically the leader of hell ain't getting none.
That's what I thought too. I was like, this poor sweet man.
I call bullshit.
He
That man
gets him,
fucks.
son.
That man fucks.
He has
Yeah.
his own personal dungeon.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That man fucks.
Right.
It's
but-
mentioned in the Hellspell series.
Right, but in the book,
That's
it
what I'm
is
saying.
entirely...
In the book, he's been done dirty.
He's entirely...
We're talking about the book right now.
Yes. In the book, he is portrayed as being lonely and
Yes.
just longingly looking at
Sharky
other people
has
who
to
are
go
happy.
fuss over him because he doesn't got anybody to fuss over him. What?
I think he doesn't have a relationship for somebody to go fuss over him. I don't think he's lacking for somewhere to put something.
You mean that this man who's been alive since the beginning of, who knows, since before hell was even created, because
Yeah.
he created it, he ain't got nobody just to be like, hey, I need some fussing.
I just think he maybe he might be a little like me, where like, I don't want the fussing. I don't want
But
people
he-
to be around me all the time. I
Okay,
just want...
But in the book, it was written multiple times that he looks sad or off in the corner, being sad boy, all lonely.
Yeah.
That was how he was described
all
in the
other
book.
boys are getting fuckings, and he's not getting any fuckings. He's sitting at the trivia table going, "Man, I wish I had some fuckings."
No, he's sitting at the trivia table going, man, I wish these fuckers would stop looking at the girls so we could actually
And
win.
I wish I could do some fucking.
Timing the amount of time that they're allowed to look at their women.
Yes. That is not the, see, here's the thing. That is not the energy of a good friend. That is the energy of somebody who is tired of being the third wheel.
Exactly. The way he's written in the book.
Basically, I'm going to bat for the devil, and I take no questions or qualms with it.
He's a sweet, sweet man.
Who needs some fucking.
Yeah.
And I stand by that.
I mean,
Also, he's got dark feathery wings, and I just imagine him being gorgeous. gorgeous.
I imagine Howl from Howl's Moving Castle. That's what.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah. Well, Lily
slightly
did
shape-shifting, slightly like always gorgeous, but also like
just
a little whiny. A little bit. And you're like, no one can be perfect.
Lily did describe him as, what was it? The accumulation of like every billionaire romance like guy.
Yeah.
He's
visually.
always just like completely put together.
I'll ruffle those feathers.
Hey.
Thanks. Yeah, we kind of skipped right back over Belle, so I'm going to bring us back to that.
That's probably a good idea. I have a question. So they mention that the healers, which I assume are also demons, they have healing magic or can like do healing energies, but there's no other magic that the demons have?
I think there's very little magic that they have except for the healing abilities. I don't 100% know. I know there are certain things that are gifted from the universe to certain people, Lily being one of them. At one point, she has the ability to make people stop speaking in front of the help desk. But it's all stuff that's granted from certain things in the places that they helped create. So Lucifer has certain abilities because he had a hand in the creation of hell.
What it feels like to me, and like maybe I'm wrong here, but what it feels like is as though the magic emanates from the place itself, and then there's entities that can tap into it.
Correct. Is the impression that I get. Is there's certain people that can tap into the abilities that are granted from the universe, from the locations, not necessarily magic in its own right. I think it's hell's magic
That does the healing?
that certain people have the ability to tap into.
I will say what I'm hoping for in future books is that we get more afterlives outside of the traditional Christian ones. Like, I want to see the Egyptian weighing your heart against a feather. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see some of that shit.
Yeah, that would be really neat. I know mostly it has been focused on like the Christian one because that's where she works in the Christian punishment place, you know, and
well, and it's so much easier to speak to what you know and not say something that is contextually wrong. You know what I mean? The amount of research that's required to effectively talk about someone else's culture is a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. And she has gone into other places to, you know, give the I guess kind of a glimpse of the other locations and everything. For instance, she goes into the Greek pantheon with the underworld, and she goes to Valhalla, and the Valkyries train her and Sharky and everything. So you get little touches of it, but it does remain mostly in the Christian pantheon.
Yeah, I think that was something that would be really cool. I do appreciate that the other souls that were around seemed to come from a variety of cultures and backgrounds and all of that. So that was nice to see. Could have seen a little bit more representation of like LGBTQ, but I also know that Angel and Ruggy, correct, are that.
Well, so is Lynn. So is Lily. She's bisexual.
That's true. That did come up.
Yes. Doesn't she say like basically that's like the only partner that lasted like beyond 3 months or something like that? Like, was the only, or at least the only one that like felt any kind of connection to before Belle. I can't remember the exact details of that, but I do like getting back to Lily's backstory a little bit. I'd like that without shame, it's spoken about like the inability to connect with somebody on Earth and how hard, because it can be really hard. And a lot of times when it's talked about, even in the romance novels that we read and love, where like eventually they're going to get their happily ever after, right? It's definitely still treated with a lot of stigma and shame that there's something fundamentally wrong with you if you haven't found somebody by a certain time. And so I like that it was very unapologetically like, yeah, you know, didn't find somebody, found a lot of shit is what I found. So like, it sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I will say the vibe of like everything in the afterlife was kind of like Lily was living in a small town romance. Like everything was just so tight knit and everybody liked everybody. And she was the new girl and everybody was like, oh my gosh, the new girl. We all love the new girl.
I do get what you mean by, a little bit of the small town thing.
Yeah.
This book is kind of a weird mixture of almost like a cozy romance and having the like really intense things, because they do the cozy things where they're just like hanging out at home and everything like that. And you really get to see her friendship, like her and Belle become friends and then become romantic, which I really appreciate.
It was definitely hitting a lot of the cozy marks, especially because any of the serious stuff mostly happened off the page as far as like the war and all of that. There's obviously Belle coming back from war is very traumatic, but it's not like we were in the middle of a battlefield. And
we did once, but that was only that one
for like
time.
Belle's scenes.
Yes.
Yeah, but they were so short. It was just like little snippets.
Yep.
Well, and for a good chunk of the book, it feels very detached and not like it's happening literally next door, right? To the point that when they revisit the battlefield after the funeral, it had the same energy as in Mulan when they're like singing their little like girl worth fighting for, and then they abruptly arrive on this decimated battlefild. And I liked that. However, I didn't feel the like urgency of the war throughout most of it.
Yeah.
And so it sort of felt like two books a little bit. Like they weren't it was like there's the before we really know about the war, and then there's the after kind of.
Well, I think it's because most of that was, most people don't know what's actually happening, that's what's going on, and they're not really at war until they are. It's like they broke through a thing, like they broke through a barrier essentially. Right. And so it wasn't happening until it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's something else while we're talking about the war and the death of demons and other deities and things like that. It's hard to reconcile with how human-like the structure of their lives is in the underworld or afterlife or however you want to call it, with them not ever getting to have their version of the afterlife. Like essentially at that point, if they're working for eternity, is this not their hell? And that's not something I've been able to sit well with.
Right, because like not everybody loves their job.
Yeah, and they're servants to humankind. It doesn't. I'm just saying, Jaysea Lynn, if you could give me a reason to not feel resentful on their behalf, that would be great.
I mean, I think it's, everybody can choose, and because there is no concept of money or anything, so nobody really has any, like there isn't food insecurity and there isn't, a want of things. Everybody, like the demons can also get everything without paying for anything and everything. So,
but like I think about it this way: even if I had all the money in the world and I could have everything taken care of, there's still responsibilities that I would see as mine, unless I was entering a place where those responsibilities I knew would be covered by somebody else. And so they're the somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you think about Greg, who is
he's the master of level 9.
Master. I was like, Lord isn't right. What's the other word? So does he just does that forever? Just forever, he's the master of level 9.
No, I think they can change their job because like several of the gate demons were soldiers and, changed jobs and everything. I think you can change. I mean, there's people who are tattoo artists and stuff too. I think they can change jobs whenever really they like.
I don't feel like I fully understand what the levels are, and I don't want to.
Well, I think the only really important thing is to know that 1 and 2 are less punishment levels and more like therapy levels, and everything else is like increasing amounts of
yeah.
And anything 5 and below are not ever allowed to reincarnate. And it takes a lot of work for anybody on level 5 to reincarnate, but they have to basically earn their way up through the rest of the levels in order to be able to reincarnate. And if they go to like say level 9 and they choose to go to the void, they will be taken to the void. So there is an out for them. It's just a big one.
I also have a lot of questions about like what the deities do with their time. Lucifer runs hell, which isn't just the levels. It's like hell.
Yeah, it's where all the demons live and everything too.
But like, what does everybody else do with their time? They didn't go to the war, which I thought was a little weird.
Well, they'd be fucking. So there's that.
That's true. But like, does Cthulhu just like swim around all day long? for forever.
I don't know what his realm looks like. So
Where did Lucifer find a megalodon that will act like a puppy? Did he conjure it or is it real?
Probably from like Poseidon or somebody.
Yeah.
probably.
Poseidon, he like went to Poseidon and was like, hey, can you make this be a good little fishy boy? And he's like, I guess. It's a weird request, but okay. I'm bored anyway.
There is an official illustrator for the Hell's Bells series. I believe his name is Goblin Grimm. And
Great name.
he did a comic book of like Sharky's story.
Mhm.
And she makes it offhand and she goes, I still don't know where he got the megalodon. And it's Steve Irwin standing there going,
Aw.
where is my megalodon? And there's just like this big like inflatable shark with a note on it from Lucifer that says, it's for the kid, I'm sorry. And that's where he stole it, is from Steve Irwin.
That makes me both happy and sad.
I know.
Yeah. If Lucifer knows Steve Irwin, why was there this whole question of like who's going to teach us about shark stuff?
I don't know if that's canon, what it is, but that's Goblin Grimm.
Well, now it's canon for me.
yeah.
Yeah.
They just, it's not who will learn it. That was Sharky that was Belle and Lily that were like, we need to learn about sharks. And so they started like texting back and forth with just a bunch of people, including Cthulhu, who commented on how tasty they were.
To be fair, Cthulhu doesn't live in the ocean. He lives in the cosmos.
It's true, but
Cthulhu be doing Cthulhu, you know?
I mean, he's very large. I'm sure
Well,
it would be a
he's-
tasty snack for him.
He's such a great and all-powerful being that in the Call of Cthulhu, the man who finds him goes insane just from seeing a little bit of him.
It was his wiener, wasn't it?
No, it was his head.
I know. I'm just
Head of his wiener.
Maybe, that might be true. That might be true.
I will say I am surprised, and probably because it makes more sense, I think, in the Hell's Bells series of like not wanting to do impressions if you're not comfortable with them. But I am surprised that we're not seeing more like figures from history or celebrities or things like that. You know, you would think at some point to cheer her up, she would have the Elvis perform for Sharky or something like that. And not saying that that's the right thing,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean.
Yeah, because like, you know, that's something that we don't really know is how many people reincarnate and how many are like, I'm just going to chill in paradise for a bit.
yeah.
Right.
So there's got to be some cool people.
I just think it's interesting that all of this like afterlife structure, a lot of it is from myth and mythology that we know and understand, but ghosts, no. Ghosts are fake. And you're like, but why? Why though? That makes all the sense in the world. That would be part of my afterlife paradise, would be haunting people.
There are paranormals in like the real world.
Mhm.
And that's why only the teenage demons can go to the real world, is because the real one, like the adult demons, upset the paranormal. So like poltergeists and shit attack them.
So there are ghosts.
So there are
There are.
ghosts.
Yes.
But you can't just like go into the afterlife and choose to be one.
Correct.
That's rude. That's rude. I want to spend at least 50 years of my afterlife being a theater ghost and just fucking with everybody's day. Anyway, okay. We can argue the semantics
Mm-hmm.
probably forever and probably will. But I'm going to bring us back to Belle because we still haven't talked about him.
We're terrible.
He's our sweet military boy.
He is very sweet for being in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Not to shit on anybody who's in the military, but I will say a lot of the people anecdotally that I've met in the military are like, I'm a tough guy. Just saying. And that goes for all genders.
Uh-huh.
They're all like, I'm a tough guy. And you're like, that's cool. Cool.
You have fun with it. But Belle's the sweet guy who his nieces made him like friendship bracelets, and they decided the winner of who can make the best friendship bracelet would be the one where it fell off first, and he's been wearing them for now like 2 years.
I'm going to say this, and I think that I'm not alone in saying this. I might not want kids of my own, but a man who is good with kids, sexy as hell.
Yes, for true.
Yeah. Yeah.
He takes his nieces and nephews on flying because Belle has wings. And so he takes them on fly rides.
Mm-hmm.
And they were fighting on who got to go next. And he's like, well, Sharky gets to go first because she's never done it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, now you guys get to decide and pick a system. And when I get back, after I bring Lily for a ride, you can decide who's going first. And when he finally gets back, he goes, "Did you get what I want?" And they're like, "Did you do what I want?" And they're like, "Yes." And Sharky is in the background just going,
They didn't do it.
"They didn't do it nicely."
He's also a massive nerd, and I do appreciate a hulky man who's a big old nerd.
Yes.
I'm here for that.
Yes.
I don't care how cliche it is. It's what I want in my books.
He's tired and sore and falls asleep on Lily while she reads him The Hobbit.
Well, that's because Sharky said it was time to read The Hobbit. So,
But he was very happy about it.
We also love a man who reads.
Yes.
And he specifically chooses some choice books out of Lily's library, which is all chock full of smut.
this is the perfect moment to tangent. And I think everybody needs to know this, but my husband has started listening to Lights Out.
Oh, I know.
Oh, I know you know. Because he
know
made sure
too.
both of you knew.
He's been snapping me about it, and I was like, it's pretty good though, isn't it?
And I have to say, I need to send Nevessa Allen a thank you or something.
Well, good for you.
I'm pretty sure the text he sent me said "new kinks unlocked."
Yes, 'cause it's what they say in the book all the time is
Yep.
new kink.
What he told me was, I've learned some things about myself. And I said, romance does that to us all. Keep learning. On behalf of Liz, keep learning.
So Belle basically doing that to Lily is yes, you're smart. Look at you.
And he
Yes.
does it without even thinking about it. He's like, I picked books that had the most worn spines because it's clear that she had read them multiple times. And
Yes.
she's internally going, is that the one with the tail scene?
Well, I like how he's already read a couple, and then she's like, "Oh, did you read the one with the tail scene?" He's like, "There's one with a tail."
Yeah.
And you didn't get me started there. And I was like, "You're not ready."
Oh, but he gets ready.
He gets ready, but he wasn't ready. Literally, not too long ago, I saw a TikTok video where this girl was explaining how to introduce your boyfriend to monster romance and where you should start and which books should not be the jumping off point. You need to start here. And I was like, I agree with all your points. No notes. You did not miss. Yeah.
So you're saying don't do what we did to Pappy, which is make him read the epilogue of a Lillian Lark?
It was a little bit of a harsh introduction, I won't lie.
Sometimes you just need to push them into the deep end.
And hope they swim. Something I like about Belle is he reads a situation well.
Mhm.
And so he comes into it and he's like, as much as I would like for us to be fucking, I think we need to not be fucking for a little bit.
Mhm.
And she's like, right, you are. But maybe.
Well, because the first time that comes up is because it was sexy trivia night, so they'd been teasing each other basically all night, and he fingered her in the bathroom.
Yeah, that bathroom scene was hot.
Yeah, it was
for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going home and they're both drunk, and so he's like, as much as I want to, not the time,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
not how we go about this.
But I do appreciate that he was like, but I'm not ready to let you go. So what if you just come crash at my place in my bed?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it doesn't mean we can't be together. We just can't be doing the fucking right now.
I would like an explanation of how her panties magically appeared. That haunts me.
The house.
But that doesn't make sense, Danny.
Yes, because they weren't in.
They weren't in the house.
They were at Belle's place, and he does not have a sentient house.
I
And
know,
if the
but I think
sentient house can just send you whatever you want, whenever you want, then why the fuck do you need to go anywhere? Why even have a coffee shop? The sentient house can send you coffee to your hand.
because sometimes it's fun to go get coffee.
Okay, Danny. Okay, then why not have the house just shop for you, right? Why would
Sometimes it's fun to go get shopping.
You're not understanding, Danny.
I think she is, but to her point, when there's nothing. What are you gonna do? Might as well go to the coffee shop.
And I don't think everybody's paradise house can do that. It
Why
makes
does
it
Why?
Why does Lily get the fucking
Why does she get
top
the best
tier
house?
shit?
she
I like how we're yelling at you like it's your fault.
the way she describes it is that at least the way they described it in the book, is that not every paradise house is as sentient as Lily's is. It's kind of because everything is built around the preference of that person.
Mm-hmm.
And so Lily's house is more sentient than most, and I think that actually has more to do with Sharky than anything else, because it became more so when Sharky got involved.
Yes, it is true that the house ramped up its awareness,
Yes.
mayhaps, once Sharky got there. But it still made it sound like everybody's house can provide whatever they want and need.
Yes, and I believe that is true. I just think hers is a little more high
In
high key about
paradise,
it.
but not for the other denizens, because Belle frequently mentions that he has a housekeeper
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and not a magic house.
Yeah, his house isn't sentient. I think that's only in paradise that's a thing. Paradise is the biggest stronghold too, so there may just be a lot more magic there.
It seems like it. I can imagine, and I know this is like a happy utopia and like everybody gets along, but it feels like there could easily be a lot of resentment from like the demons or the other denizens
Mhm.
towards the people living in paradise.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a different book, then yes, I'm sure there could be.
I definitely, though, in learning about Lily's paradise, had two thoughts. I was like, one, I would spend at least 100 years just in my house alone, reading books and playing
Right.
video games and
Mhm.
watching television and being a big bum. And the second thought I had was, why does Lily have no one who's passed that she would like to look up?
I thought that too, because once you get to paradise, you not only, could have her own like Lily's grandparents or,
Mhm.
old
Yeah.
friends, but also like she gets to remember her past lives, not as
Mhm.
vividly as her most recent one, but still, like maybe there was somebody she knew from like the time before.
Right.
And I don't have the answer to that. I know in the Belle series, she never speaks about like Lily's grandparents or anything like that. Her parents both die at some point and come to the afterlife, but she predeceased them.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah, I was expecting one of her parents to show up just for the like conflict and drama of it all, but
Mhm.
they didn't. So
no, and I think that's probably because they show up so much later in the actual series.
sure.
Because by the time her mother shows up, Penny, Ruggy, Judy are all already there. And they've been there for a couple of years at that point before her mother shows up, and then her dad shows up probably about a year after that.
Well, and that was one thing I had a hard time like tracking was time and what is the time difference between the realms, Not to say that it wasn't, I'm sure there were clues, but
Mhm.
I wasn't piecing them together, partly because it wasn't something that bothered me that much,
Mhm.
but also it wasn't enough. She wasn't ever looking into her past life, which she talks about doing very deliberately.
Mhm.
And so because of that, it was really hard to get a sense of like, is it been a year, a few months, multiple years in the living realm? Like, yeah.
From the impression I get, and again, this is from watching the series itself, not from the book, I think time on Earth seems to move more quickly
Mm-hmm.
than
Which would make sense.
in the afterlife. Because, like, for instance, I said her brother has now passed away in the series, and that's the one he's been stealing socks for. He was in his 80s when he
Sure.
passed away.
Mm.
And so it hasn't been that long that
Yeah.
she's been,
Mm-hmm.
And as far as in the book, she did mention some time jumps that were like a month or so.
Mhm.
So my kind of interpretation is it's been like maybe 6-ish months since, like
for her.
For
Yes.
her.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say this, her and Belle, for choosing to wait longer to have sex, their emotional relationship is very fast.
Oh yeah, it's so fast.
Yes.
They go from 0 to 60.
They're like, I like making sexy puns with you, to I like making sexy with you, to I like all of you, to bitch, I will give up my everything for you. And you're like, that happened very swiftly.
Yeah, when Lily gives up everything at the end, like I understand why she did it because this is
Mhm.
the happiest she's ever been. But I was also like, you don't have to make that decision right away. You can just like live life for a little bit. Like you don't need to jump into this.
But it was a romantic gesture.
It was a
is.
romantic gesture.
Also, she was just very excited when she found out about it.
I also
God
don't
damn
think
it,
she
Lev.
expected it to like go through that fast.
No.
It was literally like an hour later. They're like approved.
Well, I'm not talking about her becoming a deity. I'm talking about the fact that she was, even before she found out through Lev that she could do this, she was already considering going and like marking down that she would not be reincarnating.
Yeah.
Which again, the deity thing feels a little, it just feels unnecessary.
It's not that she's actually like a deity. It's just kind of the only way they can put it because she's no longer considered a mortal soul.
Yeah, but they also said that like it's so insanely rare.
Yes.
Like it just doesn't happen. So it felt kind of like, well, then why does she get it?
Because she's special.
She's special.
I'm guessing that Lucifer put in a good word.
Probably.
It does seem a bit odd, but also not at the same time, that you have these brilliant minds that are coming into the afterlife in some shape or form. And you wouldn't think to seek their counsel on the dealing with humanity in the afterlife.
I did also find that to be odd, of like Lev asking all these questions of like, how do you deal with human souls? And it's like, how many psychiatrists have walked their ass through,
Yeah.
you know, and are living in paradise right now? Like what?
Plato, Socrates, like
Not even just like big names, just somebody who has a PhD.
Yeah.
right?
You know?
Or asking a random person like Lily just to give like the 2 cents of like, well, this is what humanity was like for me. So
Yeah.
And it very well just may have been something that it's been that way for so long that they didn't
I think
about it.
I think what would sort of make that all make more sense is if there was something inherently more different in approach and or in thought process or culture from humans and demons, that demons would have a blind spot for that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that just doesn't seem to be the case. The demons are basically humans with horns. And so
more boundaries.
yeah. And so it was just, I think that's the sort of missing element there to sort of excuse so many things, is they just needed to be a little bit more abstracted away from what we think of as human.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah. Because didn't they mention though that I mean, Belle and Lily are not the first demon soul pairing.
Oh, no, not
Right.
at all.
Right.
So yeah, you'd think that they'd be used to, or even during the war, I understand, you know, the humans don't have healing magic, but even just, you know, reaching out to the souls that are there to be like, how can you help more?
Yeah, I think it's just that little tweak, and then all of it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, well, you wouldn't think about that because you're a demon, right?
Or even this kind of like preconceived notion that like the demons are like, well, no, we can't. Those are humans. We protect them. We don't interact.
We don't
with
interact with
yeah.
them, right?
Yeah.
Like that, and make it more of this barrier of like, it's weird for you to cross, right? And then that does sort of make Lily a special girl, you know, the
Yeah.
exception. So I get the urge not to want to lean into that too.
Yeah, because we're past that. That's so early 2000s. We
Yes.
don't do that anymore. But I mean, I gotta say, if I died and that was the afterlife, I'd be like, I mean, what that thing do? You know?
Hi, friend. I love that they had the conversation too about their likes and dislikes.
Well, yeah, that's important.
It is very important, but it's not something that's put in romance novels very often.
I think unless it's a specific novel about like
Kinks and
exploring
stuff,
kinks.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know what my paradise is able to do?
Oh yeah, what?
When I'm reading and like I'm visualizing, my paradise would shape to be that world.
Like you could project the images in your mind and
Like I don't want to actually see the people. I want to keep that from my mind, but like it surrounds me.
Oh, I see. So if you're
like,
reading,
it's almost like you're in the room where it happened.
Correct. I'm a fly on the wall.
I mean,
That might freak me out a little bit.
I think I'd fucking love it. I'd be like, yes.
I think it'd be cool in like the good situations of like, oh, I'm reading about them traveling through a forest and now I'm in a forest. But then when you're reading scenes of like the battlefield and there's
you're
just
chased
like,
by a dragon. Shit! This is the toughest workout I've ever had.
Also, if I'm reading something nonfiction, there are many things that I don't want to be in the room where it happened.
That's
yeah.
true. But like, I would, you know, it's paradise, so I can turn it off and on.
Well, that's fair.
Yep.
But
As long as I can turn it off and on, I'm
Yeah,
good. But
yeah. So one of the things that I thought was really interesting was how much of Belle's family dynamic we got to see. they were almost given like Catholic families. Like I was like, y'all are just having all the babies
Yes.
slowly over time, but like that's a lot of babies.
But we do love a non-traditional family.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
We do love that.
Lilith being just with all of these different partners and all of them being there, other than Belle's dad, who is not with them anymore. I was like, that sounds, I mean, it sounds like it could be messy, but obviously you've got it figured out.
Yeah. You know, it makes the age gap between my sister and I seem like nothing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Can you imagine having a baby sister who's 100 years or so, 200 years? I don't know how old Belle is, but like younger than you, that'd be wild.
And she is a shrieking demon.
Appreciates that about her. I think some people need to have naughty kids, and I really believe that.
I will say my favorite of Belle's family is Azzy.
Well, he's the most featured.
Yes.
He's predominant.
Because he's also kind of a BFF.
Yeah. Asmodeus. And then his wife, Soraya, who is amazing. She cracks me up.
Yes, they're definitely giving the wizened couple that's like, you two fuckers need to get together and get it figured out. Look at us. We got a fucking baby. What do you got? Nothing. So you better get together. That's the energy they've got.
I love the distinction of how, so they did like sexy trivia night and everything. And when people were like filing out the distinction of how things changed, like Hephaestus was like waiting very patiently next to his wife, like, okay, are you ready to go? And then like kind of hurried her out the door. And she said Persephone was just gone, but the chair was like neatly tucked in. So Hades clearly was like, okay. And then took her off. And Asmodeus just landed next to her and then picked her up like she was built from China and then just flew away with her.
I was a little bummed that we didn't actually get to see Hades.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Hades and Persephone is such a...
Iconic.
Yeah.
And very popular right now in romance.
Correct.
Might say we could bump the brakes on that one, authors. I think we've killed that.
Yeah.
Tapped out. That keg is gone. Okay. But, you know, we can come back to it. But yeah, I liked all the world building in general. All the like different pieces that we were getting of the puzzle. And for how long the book was, I'm still interested to learn more. But it's hard to put a cap on such a massive concept, you know?
Yeah.
All that said, I don't think the book needed to be as long as it was, which I know contradicts literally everything I just said. But I think the way that we received information, a lot of it was repeated, just slightly changed or enhanced by new information. And I think that could have been tightened up a bit, and it wouldn't need to, it could probably be 50 to 100 pages shorter with the amount of like repeated things.
I can see that.
And so, yeah, like it wouldn't take any concepts or scenes out, more like condense what we got when it was similar information. We didn't necessarily need to have Lily explaining her backstory to Belle because we've got most of her backstory. So we just needed the pieces we didn't have yet.
Yeah.
You know, things like that.
Yeah. I also still question the war as a plot device in general, because it felt more like it was just a way to keep Belle and Lily apart, when I was more interested in Belle's overall backstory. Like when we finally found out about like Samael and all that, I was like, this is cool. Let's lean into this. Let's get more about Sad Boy, because we've got Hot Muscle Boy, we've got Nerdy Boy, and now we've got Sad Boy.
That information, that like letter from his father, rips my heart out.
Yeah.
I re-listened to that part this morning. So I have flat out read this book, and then I listened to the audiobook, and I finished it again this morning and was like driving to work when that letter was being read, and I was like
Yeah, I was on a walk and I was like, it's allergies.
Book definitely made me cry a couple times.
And it's hard for it not to, right? Because when humans are so attached to life, the concept of something beyond being more significant makes sense in theory, but it doesn't change our attachment to the here and now.
You know, we're talking about Belle, and we haven't talked about the most important part, which was the sexy times.
They have some toe curling sexy times. that bathroom scene is fucking hot.
It is.
The bathroom scene is hot.
And it took me aback because I thought the whole shtick was going to be like, no, we can't cross these boundaries. So I didn't think it was coming yet. And then it was like, as soon as he was like pushing her into the bathroom, I was like, it's down. It's going down right now.
And then it was, this is about you, princess. And I'm like, oh, sir.
Yes.
Arr.
We love when you can't hold back anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it was great because they were both ready.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, like she specifically chose to wear no panties.
Yep.
And that's a choice.
It is a decision.
And, you know, I like it when Belle takes charge.
It does seem to come out of nowhere because everything up until those moments, it's very much Lily is in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's Belle being like, listen.
It's like there's this unspoken like light switch where it's like, and now I'm the captain now.
I am the captain now.
I will be running this ship.
I like that they kind of smack talk each other even during, because at one point she says something about, I'd have a pretty necklace too if you'd put your hand around my throat, and I'm like, Lily.
Yeah, Lily is freaking nasty and I love it.
I love her.
Like she's straight up just like, I'm gonna say the thing, I'm not gonna beat around the bush.
Yeah.
You can though. Hey. She would have liked that one.
Yeah, she would have.
Yes.
She would have very much liked that one.
And we do get the tail scene, which is muy important. You you cannot hint at a tail scene for so long and then not give it to us.
Yep, and they gave it to us.
Sure did. I could use more.
I mean,
for sure.
I could have used more, but I do like it was a joke. He made a joke about, oh, can I use my tail on you in the office or something? Or no, he said something about doing it in the office, and she said something about bringing anything. He said something about lube, and she goes, no, my house, my lube, your office, your lube.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, those is just manners.
I'm not going to bring my lube to your office. What am I going to be carting it around? Get it together.
That doesn't go in my purse. What if the cap comes off?
Right?
Oh, God.
That's a mess.
Terrible.
Oh,
Terrible.
I also have to say this because I think we've just read too many in the like past few months. I appreciated that there wasn't like some super sniffer on Belle where he was like, I can always tell when you're aroused because I can smell it. Like, I was just like, thank God I don't need that in my
Right?
life anymore. I'm like exhausted with this. In fact, I would like my arousal to never be known at this point. Like, until you're in it, you don't get to know about it.
it makes me think of the scene in Easy A when he's like, do you smell that? Do you smell that?
Yeah.
Ew. What, you're not supposed to smell? I don't know, but if it does, you're not supposed to comment on it.
This is true. Not like that. Nasty. Anyway.
She very much likes mirrors.
She learns that.
I can understand that.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand that.
We've had some good mirror scenes.
Yeah.
In the past. There was the one in The Duke Gets Desperate.
Oh, that was
hot.
Yep.
Obviously, Bridgerton season 3.
Mm-hmm.
Hot. I'm not thinking of any more off the top of my head. I think there was one in the Devil, Married to the Devil.
Oh, I think there was one in Married to the Devil.
But so you can keep. No more Hades and Persephone. More mirrors. That's my message to people who don't care.
They should care.
They should.
And then when Sharky knocks on the door when they're having sexy times, the one when she did knock on the door and she couldn't get it open, they're like panicking and trying to get the house to help them, and the house is like throwing shirts at them and stuff.
Yes.
That's the energy I need in my sentient house. I need like full sentience. I want to have conversations with you, dog.
Carlton, can you make the bed?
What Carlton was reminding me of is, y'all remember the 90s movie, the classic, The Parent Trap.
Yeah. Well, yes, of course.
And then there's her butler, Martin.
Yes.
That is Carlton's energy to me.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, I can get behind that. Yeah, for sure.
So one thing that did take me out of those sexy scenes and some of the emotional scenes was there was a tendency towards this like very therapy based language. And it almost made some of those moments, it did the opposite, I think, of what was intended, which was this like very rational approach to the romance and almost made it seem too cold and clinical. And so that was something that I just was like, I get what you're doing. And it didn't feel warm is the best way I can describe it. And so I liked when she let go of that and leaned more into the like punny version of Lily and Belle, and leaned more into something gentler and something or sexier, right? But just something that felt more like a person would say that.
I think that's why I really liked the homecoming sex scene,
Yes.
because it was like just hot and aggressive and like we've been missing each other for too long. Like we have to just go to town. It felt like, we're getting rid of all of our own hangups and just going for it.
Well, and it felt like it was a barrier between their relationship as well. Like it kept them protected, because you could say, I have this boundary, or we're not emotionally prepared. And like that is correct language, but it isn't necessarily good, open, comfortable language that you would have with a partner. It's the same type of clinical separation that you have to have with your therapist, because they're not set up. They shouldn't be your best friend, right?
Yeah.
And so when that started to come down, I got way more into their relationship than I did early on.
Well, real relationships are messy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the best of intentions, they're still messy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I want to see them mess a little.
Well, and to me, it made a lot of sense for it to be there at the beginning, especially with when Lily is trying to figure out her new identity in this realm, and when Sharky comes along and needs that kind of almost detached approach because there's too much that she doesn't understand yet.
Mm-hmm.
All of that worked for me. It was just with especially because the rapport with Belle and Lily was so fun and like goofy the whole time. When they would get too clinical, it felt like it wasn't them speaking, it was their trauma speaking.
I can see that. Yeah.
And so I was really excited towards the end that I'm hoping that they've gotten over that hump going forward, and it is this like comfortable, we can be just us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So that feels like a good place to wrap it up. That means it's...
I don't know, guys. I don't know. It's been so long. It's been 2 weeks. What is it? It's ratings time.
You're so dramatic.
You are so dramatic.
You love it.
I do.
Yeah.
What's your spice rating?
So the spice scenes were written really well, and there was like enough variety that I never got bored, but it wasn't like the spiciest thing I've ever read in my entire life either.
Mm-hmm.
So I maybe give it like a 3.5, maybe 3.75, because they were well written, and I did like the variety that we got. It's just, I've definitely had some spicier.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think too, because the book is so long, like that, you know, just like the amount of pages of spice versus pages of book,
Yes.
you know, it's not very high.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just,
No. I kind of think it's in the same realm as Quicksilver is for me. And I rated Quicksilver as a 3. And so that's what I'm going to rate this one.
okay.
I think, I agree. When the spice was there, it wasn't like some of the books where we read where it's sort of has this film over it that where you can't really see all the detail.
Mm-hmm.
And so the spice was spicy,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a lot of book. And because of that, there's like less percentage wise in this book. So it's like a weird metric. I don't know how to measure. So I'm going to keep it safe and go with a 3, because then I don't need to think about it very hard, because yes, the spicy, good spicy, quantity of spicy per page lower.
Yeah.
So take that, do with it what you will.
What's your romance?
I give them a 4.5. I
Very
like the like
high.
building of their friendship and into something more and learning from each other and everything.
And this is not because I didn't like the romance, because I did, but I don't think this book is about romance. I think it is a book that has romance, and I think it has romantic elements, but this book is about Lily, and Belle is just a character in Lily's story. And so for me, like, it just doesn't, I go back to my initial statement. It isn't a romance. It's a fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I give it a 2, just because it's not what the book is about.
That's fair. I mean, there's pretty large chunks of it where Belle is not really involved. I think I give it a 3. I loved the cozy moments of them like sitting and drinking hot cocoa with Sharky and and kind of like the cute moments of Belle just being like, if I look at her, I won't be able to get through the trivia night. What the fuck? But I do think that it could have actually used, to your point, a little more romantic scenes, not necessarily sexy scenes or even cozy scenes, but like we're on a date or we're like doing activities together.
There was a little bit of yada yada yadaing to get to the next part, which it makes sense because the book's already really long, right? Yeah. But especially with the first, like, I would argue like third of the book, not even really featuring Belle, and if he was there, he was a minor character at that point. You know what I mean?
He was fruit bat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what's your overall rating?
Oh, I bet I can guess Danny's rating.
Oh, what's Danny's rating?
Well, it's a 5.
Yeah.
I fucking loved this book. And I've been like, I need you guys to read this with me, please. I made them.
My rating was a 4. I really liked it. Like I said, I sort of think that there were a few things like tidying up a little bit that could have improved it. But I'm really excited to read the next one. So
I will say, this is her first book.
Yeah.
So I am extremely pleased with how this turned out.
Yeah. And like debut authors, either they've been working on the same book for like 100 years or they're like, I'm going to try this. And so, yeah, you kind of have to like, you get the flow by doing, you know?
Right.
Just like anything else.
Yeah. Well, she was writing on AO3.
Yes.
Yeah,
before.
that's true.
Yeah.
But that's a different kind of format.
Oh, for
too.
sure. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
The expectations are wildly different.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean like, oh, you can have lower quality. I mean like what people want on AO3 is different than what they want in these books.
And if you're writing fan fiction, like you already have a premise to write about. You don't need to describe what Captain America looks like. You just, everybody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, Danny. Okay. Your rating, Liz?
I'm going to give it a 3.5. I agree that there's like a lot of potential in the world and in the characters. I would have liked to see more conflict maybe between Lily and Belle or just Lily and kind of anyone. And it was a little long at the end. It was kind of hard. Not hard to get through, but it was kind of like, okay, I get it. Let's move on. But I've also seen the Hell's Belle series, and you know, I think she did a really good job of setting up the next book with us, with having so much time with Greg or knowing things about Greg, and then with Penny just showing up at the end.
I will say, I don't know if this is something you guys are experiencing or if I'm just on a weird hot streak, but like with the series that I'm reading, I'm getting lucky where they're getting better as I go rather than deteriorating as I go, which is the worst. And so I'm hopeful that this is gonna do that. It's gonna climb up as it goes and get even better. Cause like, yeah, man, I'm on a hot streak, so it has to.
So there's an expectation here.
Yeah. So just so you know, like your book is going to be better because I'm going to read it.
God.
That's how that works.
Well, this will be a trilogy. So I think the next book is Penny and Greg. And then I think the third one will probably be Ruggie and Angel.
I mean, those are the big relationships in the show.
All right. Well, I think that now we have to make our recommendations.
Yes. I don't have any.
No, Danny, no.
Here's the thing.
You had so long.
This put me in book depression.
Yeah, I've been there.
I legit don't have any because like I had a hard time reading anything else for a while.
I feel like I could have recommendations that are for parts of the book. You know what I mean? Like not the entire book, but like, oh, if you liked this part, then you would read this.
I say watch Hell's Bells.
That's a perfect recommendation.
Yeah.
My recommendation, and I know we don't do this for books, but I'm going to go with a movie.
Oh.
And it's going to be the movie What Dreams May Come.
I don't know that movie.
Wow. Cold room. Okay. So What Dreams May Come is one of Robin Williams' more serious roles. The premise is that this father of two is in a car accident after his kids have also been in an accident. And so he is now entered into the afterlife or heaven or however you would like to interpret it, and is being led through this world by by his family, by this friend he's had who has also passed away. And it's just beautiful visuals of, you know, their old dog that has passed shows up, which for Lily happens with her cat.
Mm-hmm.
And there's at one point he's in his heaven, and his wife was an artist, and so his whole world is one of her paintings. He's just living in her painting for a little while. So I can't really say much more without giving away some major information, but I will preface and warn this. There are some major trigger warnings for that movie, so you should look that up on Does the Dog Die? If you're the kind of person, doesthedogdie.com, if you've never heard of that, it's like literally just, you can look up to see whether or not something bad happens in a movie to kind of protect yourself. Also, it is a sad movie. It has a like hopeful lilt to it, but it is a very sad movie. So be prepared with the Kleenexes.
Fair enough.
I would recommend a book I've recommended several times, which is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. Nothing to do with the afterlife or demons, but there is magic because witches. But it's about a woman who is a witch, I mean, obviously. But she lives in a world where witches are very secretive, and she eventually ends up in a position where she is hired to be the teacher, magical teacher, I guess, to these 3 very precocious young girls, which kind of reminded me of Lily and Sharky's relationship. And she has to kind of teach them how to control their magic. And her relationship is with the grumpy human that is hoping to take care of them. So a little bit more grumpy than Belle, but there is this kind of shared connection between the two of them as they're taking care of these kids, and that kind of grows their relationship. And so kind of that reminded me of the situation with Sharky and Lily.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that's it, folks. If you like this episode, find us out there on the socials at Wrong Dust Jackets, primarily on TikTok and Instagram. But you can really find us anywhere: YouTube, Facebook, Pinterest. And you can go to our website, wrongdustjackets.com, where you can find a list of episodes we've done, as well as episodes that are coming up and our blog posts. And we would love it so much if you could interact with us on the socials or give us a like, 5 stars, rate, review, whatever is available to you in your podcast listening app. That helps us, and it would be very nice of you to do. That's all I've got. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.